Elias, my brother, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. Yourself?
Not too bad. It's hot here. It's nice and warm. How's it in Toronto at the moment?
It's hot as hell. No complaints though. Better hot than cold, right?
Oh, honestly, I'm right there with you. I'm not a winter boy, man. I gotta be in the heat.
I
I
dig
mean,
it.
for you, like it's got to get pretty hot for you with all that hair, man. But I'm sure you're used to it now.
Yeah, we got options. Hair up or hair down, depending
Hair
on
dyed.
the weather. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm kind of working on my flow too, so I gotta
I dig
gotta
it.
start working on it. The girlfriend said just keep it clean. That's all she gave me. So
There you go. I dig it.
thanks, man. But yeah, so a year and a half, I mean, in Toronto, like pretty much has been in total lockdown for the most part. I mean, obviously you probably got an exemption as a pro, but that you must feel kind of fortunate to be able to still train and have something to do, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And even beyond that, I've been very lucky throughout this whole process in the sense that I actually been working on a few TV shows and a film over the past year and a half. And the industry has been able to work because of the safety protocols. So I've been lucky to be one of the people that have been really busy, whether it's in my fight career, but also in some of the plain pretend that I do every single day.
Yeah, I kind of digged a little bit into that movie that you've been working on. So you're playing like an MMA fighter. What happens with the character? I didn't get to that part.
Well, there are a few different projects. That project, if you're talking about, it's called Last Hit. That one will be filming hopefully later in September, October. I
Okay.
basically play an MMA fighter, huge stretch, and I get injured, and then I reinvent myself with competitive video games. It's very much a kind of a first of its kind, and it's kind of meets. It's kind of like Southpaw meets The Wizard, if anyone knows who that is, that
Yeah.
movie, and then also sprinkle in a little bit of dodgeball.
Oh, okay, right on. So is this going to be like a more of an action comedy? What's the
Action
feel of the
comedy.
movie?
It's like it's an action comedy. I play a competitive video gamer, and there's a cool little twist that kind of happens throughout the film that kind of like flips it on its head, and will be a really interesting thing that kind of really hasn't happened before.
That's awesome. I think that's kind of a new thing, and I think it needs to happen because there's too many like sports movies. There's a lot of fighting, whether it's Southpaw or you got the Rocky movies now. A lot of it's just emotion, but there needs to be some comedy thrown in there as well.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is going to be a first of its kind, and I'm really excited. It's a great script. I got a great team behind it, and then it's just one of those things where COVID be damned, we got to get it done soon. It's just one of those things that everyone's kind of dealing with, even though I've been very lucky with the many different projects I've been on. Obviously, certain hiccups have been how along the way, but such is life. I'm rolling with the punches.
Awesome, rolling with the flow. And I think it's a good thing that the movies are doing a lot more with MMA. I know that I think there was Never Back Down. I think that was more the MMA idea, but I feel like it's good that they're doing more and more because it helps MMA grow as a sport, and it is growing as a sport, but it does help put it on the map for sure.
Yep,
There's
and in the mainstream, right? The
Yeah,
mainstream.
exactly. And I feel like the more people watch it, they don't, because I feel like there's some people that are sitting on the fence where they're like, well, I don't know, like there's the people that watch MMA hardcore, and then you have people that don't know anything about it, but you get these people and you watch the movie and they're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. You really get to see what a fighter's really like, and then they start watching it on the TV, which you gain more fans and it grows as a sport.
For sure. No, I totally agree. As with anything, right? More exposure is always a good thing. Even why when, for instance, we got this weekend, we got one of the YouTuber versus one of the greatest fighters of all time, Mayweather versus Paul. There's still eyes coming on, the sport, whether it's boxing, whether it's combat sports, mixed martial arts. Now you got Tyrone Woodley. He's going to face his brother, who I think is an arguably a tougher challenge in the capacity of, I think Jake Paul, he's doing everything right. And even his kind of message in general, I'm digging it. I wasn't necessarily a fan before, but I really like what he's doing.
Yeah, and I really, I understand the whole trash talking. That's just him. He's doing the right thing. He's making his money. But I really respect what he said with the UFC, and it's truth. It really is. I don't really want to get into it too much because I don't want to bash UFC. I like what they do for the most part. So I just want to kind of move on here. So going back to the beginning, I mean, you're training or you're studying at Humber College, and then you start doing the little MMA on the side. At what point did you know like this was like a potential career choice?
Well, training at first, funny enough, even going back even before that, the way I got into mixed martial arts in general, I, kind of got dragged into a fight that I didn't want to, and essentially tried to walk away, and then someone, it was high school, so someone's older cousin grabbed me, kind of sucker punched me, and then a light just went on, and I kind of, like being very Canadian, just instantly jerseyed him like a hockey fight, and then
Yeah.
beat the crap out of him, and kind of date myself here, but a couple people had Razor phones, and they recorded it, and I got a little bit of attention off that,
Yeah.
and in school thought I was, probably a legend in my own mind, as my dad used to say. And kind of went undefeated in high school there afterwards. And
Yeah.
it was after my first year university, or first year university Guelph Humber kind of thing, that I was getting my degree. That I went to the local watering hole, bar that doesn't exist anymore, the Cock and Pheasant, and I picked a fight that I shouldn't have, because I was, I guess it's safe to say, under the influence of alcohol, where my opponent wasn't. And I did an ill-fated Superman punch out of the gate. I slipped and fell, and he kicked me in the face. And in doing so, I got up, ripped off my shirt, and he just saw this half-naked dude and didn't want anything to do with him. So he walked away and ran away. And then kind of the whole, coming full circle, that too was videotaped. This time, the next day at work, I worked at Foot Locker at the time. I was kind of laughing with a couple of my coworkers, and another coworker came and asked me if I was all right, because it turned out that someone filmed it, put it on something called YouTube, and I asked them, "What's YouTube?" Well, lo and behold, I and a couple 100,000 other people ended up watching me have my first loss. It was dubbed "Boot to Face," and it went on like a whole bunch of those viral videos and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just devastated. My whole identity, again, legend in my own mind, kind of deflated. And I confided in my father, told him what happened, and he said, "Well, you love that UFC stuff so much. Why don't you go to a gym and make sure it never happens again?" So I did, and I just never left. And from there, I fell in love with fighting as a fan, and then I um, fell in love with it as a athlete myself, a competitor. And it was basically, throughout, I had a couple of amateur fights here and there that I kept on winning, and I really started to believe in my potential, and the potential of me actually becoming a fighter. And it was after I graduated from Humber and got my degree. My course, it had a like a paid internship where I had a couple jobs lined up after I graduated. My parents, I got the diploma, and they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, funny enough, I bought a ticket to Thailand, and I'm going to go to Thailand and fight."
Lost you there for a second. Gotcha.
Oh, no, there you go. No, I opened up my headphones, and then it obviously technology stepped
Technology
in. But
sometimes screws you.
yeah, exactly. So basically, after I got my degree at Humber, my diploma that says I was an educated individual, my parents asked me what I'm going to do, and I said I'm going to Thailand, and that's what I did. And I fought professionally with a couple of kickboxing fights, and I beat them up pretty badly, and I realized, yeah, this is what I want to do, and I just ran with it.
Well, and then that being said, I mean, your resume speaks for itself. You go in, you make your debut in 2011. I mean, you're in 8 fights. I think it was like 8 fights in, and then you're on the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And you win the Ultimate Fighter. You and Chad Priest, both Canadians, both the Canadian Ultimate Fighter winners. I mean, was that kind of like that defining moment for Canada in UFC Canada?
So basically, yeah, I'd say very much it was a highlight in Canadian MMA. Kind of, it was that right at that tip when GSP was kind of at his top.
Yeah.
He just beat Johnny Hendricks, retired. Had the Ultimate Fighter, Canada versus Australia. And I was lucky enough to be a part of it, and lucky enough and also determined enough to win. And that's exactly what I did. And I ran with it for 11 fights, 12 fights actually, I think, with the UFC, and pulled a 9-3 record with the UFC. And then continuing off of that success with my career there, I've kind of done with the same thing what I did with getting with mixed martial arts and getting into the UFC. Now I'm kind of just hitting the ground running as a free agent. I get to be an agent of change for medical cannabis, and that's what I've done so far in BC, and now more recently Colorado.
So I guess I don't know if you had a chance, but the Ultimate Fighter's back on. Have you had a chance to watch it, or do you have the urge to watch it?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. Obviously, the Ultimate Fighter has it's near and dear to my heart, and I'll always be a fan. Like, that's part of the reason how I, even got to know the UFC, and kind of became a fan with the Ultimate Fighter and the whole process of the reality show. I'm a fan of mixed martial arts first and foremost, and definitely will check it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll be really interested. I haven't watched yet. I really do want to. I just haven't got the time to get around. I'll be interested to see where everyone's going to end up. But that being said, so I mean, I guess you get in the UFC. I mean, you've had a successful run. But the thing is, I got to see, though, you being that middleweight division at that time, I'm not saying they're not tough now, but you really had a lot of tough opponents. You didn't really have anybody that was really you weren't being fed guys. You were taking on tough dudes.
Yeah, I think on like you said, my record kind of speaks for itself. Even on my worst day, I'm still just on my worst day, I get a split decision loss to some of the best to ever do it in my weight class. I'm proud of my fights. Whether it's with even the losses, whether it's Thiago Santos, whether it's Brad Tavares or Derek Brunson. Again, even my losses, kind of stack up in the ranking of the middleweight division, the UFC, and the best in the world.
And who would you say inside the UFC was probably your toughest fight?
Thiago Santos, hands down.
I was gonna say I was hoping that's what you're gonna say, because man, that guy hits I've never seen he hits so freaking hard. How hard does he truly hit?
Hard enough that you pee blood afterwards.
Oh geez.
Yeah, just kind of put it out there.
I mean, but I gotta see, he's probably one of the nicest guys I've ever heard from. He's I've heard nothing but nice things from him, but he's definitely Cajun. He's just
it's like Mike Tyson, where in his heyday he was just a world beater, and then he'd be like, "Hi, how you doing?" And then with Anderson Silva, I got the chance to train with Anderson a couple times, and again, he has this aura, and then he just has the most soft spoken voice. He's like, "Hello, nice to meet you."
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you see down the street that you want to pick a fight with. He's not a beefy guy at all, but then he just lays that front snappy kick on your chin. It's he's not a nice guy.
Sweetheart, literally a sweetheart. He's so shy. It's actually hilarious. Where I'm I'll every time I see him, I'll boost his tires and stuff like that, and he'll be like, "Oh, you're too nice." It's hilarious.
Yeah. And now that being said, so. You've had, like you said, you've had a lot of your career in the UFC so far. After when you left the UFC, you got to fight in PFC and RFC. What was the transition like going from an organization like UFC to those other promotions?
I still got to fight top talent, former UFC fighters. Was able to kind of, reassess. Obviously, as a fighter, you're always trying to grow. And I did get criticism, in regards to my style. So I kind of went back to basics with my wrestling coach that I've been with for quite some time. And we went back to, the grinder, the finisher that I got me to the Ultimate Fighter to begin with. So, I'm 2-0 since leaving the UFC. And in that process, I finished both my opponents, and I look to finish a third opponent sooner rather than later. Once I, clear up some of my schedule in regards to the different productions that I have kind of going. The plan is to validate my therapeutic use exemption in the US. So far, it's looking like Colorado, as they recently approved me as the first cannabis athlete in the US. Come New Year, go back to another larger promotion. I'm constantly in conversations. It's just I'm doing a lot of these other projects that there's an opportunity to kind of seize that in every way, shape, and form, and kind of running with it, just like I did with martial arts. But I'm always growing. I'm always in the gym. And this whole time I've been able to just grow as a martial artist, and I look to grow as a fighter and be a more complete fighter on game day.
Well, and the thing is, like, before I get into that, I mean, looking at your last two opponents, I mean, was it just a coincidence that they were both ex UFC fighters like yourself, or is that what you and your management wanted?
Yeah, that's definitely what we wanted. We wanted to show, again, not taking any easy fights, not.
Yeah, so you're like, and I think, like, just to add on, because I kind of got what you were saying, but to kind of add on what you were saying, like, and I feel like it's probably good that you're not getting these up and comers, because you probably don't want these guys making a name off you as well.
Yeah, but again, I'm that confident in my ability of being one of the top fighters in the world that I'm willing to take on anyone. There were a couple of up and comers that did intrigue me. A couple guys from Canada that ended up going to the UFC, so I understand why they didn't want to fight me. But again, I think I'm one of the best in the world still, and I look to prove that every single time I step in the cage. And I've done that successfully after the UFC. I did that in the UFC and leading up to the UFC. So I'm really excited for what comes next. I'll get another fight in before the end of the year, and look to validate my therapeutic use exemption with cannabis in the US, and then run with it in 2022 rather.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about a lot of your plans in the US. I mean, with COVID here in Canada, I mean, US, they're past everything, but in Canada, I mean, it doesn't look like anything's really happening too well. Like, things aren't looking too well at the moment for Canada. So the US is kind of where you're heading to. You're not thinking about doing any promotions here until they open up.
I did. I actually, I co-promoted with Rise FC.
Okay.
I partnered with Saba, and I'm very proud of what we did, not only for cannabis, but also in regards to getting combat sports back. Our actions and our protocols have led many different organizations to have events. There'll actually be 2 different events from 2 different promotions in BC because of the hard work that we did. So I'm really excited that, my fight for cannabis and also my fight to bring competition back to, Canada has been fruitful in British Columbia. And I couldn't be more thankful for the commission. They were honest brokers throughout the whole process, and, also the process of my therapeutic use exemption. But with that being said, all of the best talent for the most part is in the US. And in many ways, that's where a lot of the jurisdictions that still have restrictions for cannabis are. So that's where I look to, again, continue to knock cannabis out of the prohibited list, not only for myself, but for US athletes as well.
I mean, and doing that, like, I mean, this was only last year that you're exempted. So that being said, I mean, like, how long did you have to fight with them to be able to be exempt from the
yeah, the British Columbia government and through the commission, they were actually very easy to work with. It took a few months, but the whole process took about 5 years. From the Ultimate Fighter, from the UFC when I was with them, and applying with the USADA, which was an uphill battle because they're a U.S. company who gets funding by the U.S. government. And the U.S. government, because of its classification, doesn't recognize cannabis as a medicine. So it was kind of process, but all roads kind of and the universe kind of is almost like poetic justice that USADA, which is headquartered in Denver, said no, but Colorado, the whole state, said yes 5 years later. So kind of a little bit of poetic justice, and the road less traveled is sometimes longer, but totally worth it.
Yeah, and that being said, so what are the guidelines? Like, are you able to use at any point, or is there certain restrictions in place for
basically
that?
24 hours? Yeah, there's certain restrictions, basically 24 hours before, which makes sense. They don't want
Right.
people to essentially be high when they compete.
Of course.
So it's about 24 hours, give or take, from weigh-ins or the fight. And for the most part, again, what I use cannabis for is pain management. So it's the whole process, and that includes the weight cut. And I no longer have to, remove cannabis as a pain management, medicine that I've been using for the past 5+ years. And again, it just kind of puts it at the same level as any other type of substance or medicine in the capacity. You can't be impaired when you compete, plain and simple. And I don't plan to be.
Yeah, and I don't think that would help you in a fight too much. I don't think. But that being said, I know that UFC just finally they recently just had a deal, and now marijuana's. I think they
it's kind of
yeah, kind of a little
kind of yeah.
There's
like,
a farm, a fine line.
Say you like smoking weed to get high. If you say it's a medicine and you say that you use it for anxiety or pain management, like what I use it for, that's considered a performance enhancer. So there, it's like it's legal-ish. Just say you like to go smoke weed, which again, takes away from it being recognized as a plant and what I'm doing, plant and more specifically plant medicine, and that's what I've been fighting for. So again, the USADA and the UFC, they're in this weird place where again, federally cannabis isn't recognized, but I'm doing my best to fight the stigma of medical cannabis and fight for its recognition as what it is, a medicine.
I don't think that you're going to be the first and you're not going to be the last. I mean, there's so many fighters that you can see that half the fighters are smoking weed now, or they're using marijuana or at least CBD. It's so helpful.
I think it's very ingrained in the culture. It's very ingrained in California and other parts of the US that UFC fighters, mixed martial artists train and compete in. And again, also jiu-jitsu as well. So, I'm not the only one. And like you said, I won't be the last.
I mean, it's kind of crazy to see how long it took the UFC to really get to this point, at least to allow some freedom with marijuana usage.
It makes sense. Again, cannabis is considered a Schedule I drug. It's just the classification. It's going up against the federal government. And I'm very proud of my work to get it recognized and also get it decriminalized in the sense of the stigma that it surrounds it. So doing my part to knock cannabis out of the prohibited list in athletics, not only for myself but for all athletes.
Of course. Now I'm just running up on time here, so I will just get a prediction for you. So you got Adesanya and Vettori 2 coming up in a week or two. So that being said, I mean, who do you see win this fight?
I still think Israel has his number. I think that they've both grown very much. I just think Israel, as long as he comes back from his last fight, although there wasn't too much damage or whatnot. With that being said, there is a blueprint now to beat him. Although I would argue that blueprint was always there. People just didn't capitalize it. So I think it'll be a great fight, a great grudge match, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight. I think a lot of people are kind of having the same idea. Adesanya is more the favorite for sure. But that being said, I mean, I think anything can happen in this fight. Vettori has come far and Adesanya has come far ever since his fight with Gastelum. So it'll be interesting to see who's going to be really coming in, who really wants it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Elias, I'm coming up on time here, so I do appreciate you taking the time. I know we had a couple cut-ins in and outs, but I do appreciate you taking your time to come on here. Enjoy the weekend. It's supposed to be hot, so enjoy the weather, and we'll hope to see you in the cage very soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the chat, and would love to chat when again when I have a fight or once I kick some ass again.